welcome here to a very special edition of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora's Commissioner Corner. I have the opportunity and the pleasure of speaking with leaders all throughout collegiate athletics all over this wonderful country of ours. And someone who has been no stranger to the broadcast or our segment Commissioner Corner is Tom Wistrcill, who joins us from the Big Sky Conference and is now the College Commissioners Association, the CCA Vice President, which was named here within these last few weeks. So it is my honor and my pleasure to always welcome to the show Tom Wistrcill. And on top of saying welcome back to the Big Sky Commissioner, I get to say what's up to the VP of the CCA. How are you, Tom?
I'm wonderful, Dan. Great to be with you as always, and hope you and your listeners are having a wonderful summer.
Yeah, we absolutely are, and I thank you for that positivity and for everything that you bring forward. It's been a minute since we spoke, and so I definitely would like to get into this CCA piece of it and to give people a little bit of background on exactly what's going on here. The CCA, once again, the Collegiate Commissioners Association, being a part of this puts you in a place where you have the opportunity to connect in this world even deeper of collegiate athletics. Now, Jim Phillips of the ACC, who I know very well as named the fifth commissioner in ACC history, having started in 2021 and was appointed to the Board of Governors last fall. You coming in and spending a lot of time with the Big Sky, being the vice president now. You will be here, and at the end of the 2-year term for Jim Phillips, you will become the president of the CCA. So I would love to just get your thoughts on what it means to be a part of the Collegiate Commissioners Association and why this is a good move, not only for you personally, but for the Big Sky.
So yeah, great background there, Dan, and you're right. So the CCA is made up of the 32 member conferences within Division I, and it's a pretty tight-knit group. While there's different factions within there, certainly, right? You have the P4 and now the G6. You have the FCS commissioners, of which I'm one of them. And then you have the NCAA, which is the non-football playing conferences. We meet, about quarterly via Zoom. We meet twice during the year in person. And so to be elected, nominated, and then elected by my peers for this position is quite an honor. And I'm fortunate to have known a lot of those people in the room, like a Jim Phillips, who you just mentioned, who I've known for 20-some years. And, people like myself who have been in this business for 30 years. One of the things that age gives you is lots of connections. So in the different places that I've been, I think probably gives me a little bit of a unique perspective into that, being that I worked at 2 P4 institutions. I was a G6 commissioner for 6 years and now have been a Division I FCS commissioner for 7 years. So it's a wonderful group of people that care deeply about the future of college athletics. We don't always agree on things, and that's okay, but it leads to great discussion, and we seem to end up in a pretty good place amongst all the different groups in there. So again, to be elected to a leadership position, luckily I get to serve under Jim Phillips for a couple of years, learn the ropes from him before I take over the chair position.
And like you said, to be elected here and have the opportunity to be a part of this, just bring me into that element of it, of how this all comes together. There's 32 conferences, like you said, in Division I athletics. So to even have the opportunity to be a president or vice president, just how this all comes about and how the decisions come to be that a Tom Wistrcill gets to sit in the CCA as VP.
Yeah, every couple of years the chair rotates off, and that's so like Bernie McGlade, who's the commissioner of the A10, she was the prior chair the last few years and did a wonderful job. Jim Phillips was elected as the vice chair a couple of years ago. So near the end of the term of the chair, they have to elect a vice chair. And they typically move it between, they wouldn't have a P4 commissioner also be the vice chair if they're the chair. So it's kind of rotated amongst the groups. And so I was nominated by the FCS group to be the vice chair. And then there were some other nominations from other commissioners and that. And then they hold a email election. And so I was elected as the vice chair. So Just incredibly proud of that and thankful to the relationships and the people that I know well that they believe that I can help carry the torch eventually with this group. So looking forward to, like I said, number one, learning under Jim, and then taking over the reins here in July of 27.
Yeah, and I think it's wonderful, obviously, that you have that relationship with Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, like you said, for so many years now. What can you say about that relationship and just how it's blossomed and how it's grown? Just your take on Jim Phillips and maybe how you started in that first connection to where you are today.
So Jim's a close personal friend as well as a colleague. We first met when he was the AD at Northern Illinois University. That's how long we go back before he was even at Northwestern. And so I don't remember exactly the year. I'm going to say it was close to 20 years ago, 2005, 2004. Jim is a very open, kind, and wonderful person to be around. And so we hit it off right away just with our commonality around the upper Midwest. And at the time, I was working at Wisconsin, and then went to Minnesota. And then when he was the AD at Northwestern and I was the AD at Akron, we played a lot of games against each other: football, basketball. One year we met in the tennis NCAA playoffs. I remember one year we played softball against them. That didn't go well. They had a great softball program. And then we just see each other at industry meetings. Remember, we were both ADs. It was big groups of ADs, but you still kind of end up talking with people you know well. And then as commissioners, I think our relationship has even blossomed greater because now we spend a lot of time together in meetings or talking about things. And he's one of my close friends in this business, commissioners wise, a confidant and somebody that I can call and say, hey, here's the rumors I'm hearing coming out of the P4. Is there any credence to that? Is that incorrect information? What can you share with me, Jim, that can be helpful to what we're trying to do in the Big Sky Conference or among FCS football? So he's just that type of person who's just a wonderful person to be around, very positive leader, and certainly looked on as one of the top leaders within college athletics.
Yeah, like you said, and I agree wholeheartedly. Jim and I have a wonderful relationship, and we get to talk about God and a lot of other things that are well beyond the sport of football or any of the sports. And I know so sometimes, during ACC kickoff and tip off and whatnot, there's so many questions about NIL and the transfer portal. And we're sitting there talking about God and laughing with each other and just speaking about things that really matter. So I can echo your sentiments there about Jim Phillips. He moved from AD to commissioner of a conference. You moved from AD to commissioner of a conference. What can you say to that move, that career move that you had to go from overseeing an entire athletic department, which obviously has a plethora of sports and a bunch of different coaches and student athletes, and then you're dealing with the scholastic side, to then branching out and saying, okay, instead of having one school and all these sports beneath me, I have all of these sports of all of these schools that I am now working with. So the jump from AD to commissioner, just what that experience has been like for you and why you thought you were ready for it at the time that you chose to do it.
So I was very fortunate and probably very unique. I'm sure I was the youngest commissioner in NCAA history. I was 24 when I became a Division II commissioner and did that for 7 years. And so I ironically started my career as a D2 commissioner. Yep. Before later becoming a D1 AD and now D1 commissioner. So I was fortunate that I knew a lot about the role of commissioner, even though Division I is very different than Division II. When you're an AD and you're so laser focused on your school, what's happening in your community with your student athletes, the job of commissioner is much broader, where you're concerned about so many schools. And in the case of the Big Sky, we're in 8 different states. So there's just a lot happening around. Being an AD before becoming a commissioner, I think has really helped me, because what I can bring to the group is an understanding of sitting in that chair and the pressures that the ADs are under, whether it's pressures internally, whether it's with, parts of campus that maybe aren't as supportive, dealing with the president's office, externally, the external community that each of them are in, And so just the various pressures. And so I think that gives people like me and Jim Phillips and people like Bob Bowlesby before us, or Keith Gill at the Sun Belt, the ones that have been ADs, and there's others, I'm sure, that those are just the ones that pop into my head. I think it gives you an advantage because you sat in the chair as an AD. And then the ability to work with multiple types of presidents, I think, is really an important skill set, because every president is different. That makes your board different that you report to. But having experience working with presidents and at least understanding kind of what they're going through, from the faculty to the boards of trustees and those types of things, I think that just gives any commissioner an advantage to having been in that role versus ones that haven't. The ones that haven't, it's kind of like they don't know what they don't know, right? Because they were never in that role on campus as AD. But that campus experience to me, both as like an associate AD at a school like Minnesota, and then being the AD at Akron for the 6 years I was there, I think that was a huge help to me, not only just becoming the commissioner of the Big Sky, but being successful at it, is having that background. And so that's why I love the job. It's very different every day. You're working with all different types of people at all different type of level. And so hopefully that's what, not for me to answer, but hopefully that lets our constituencies know that I understand what they're going through.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, you went from commissioner in Division II, you went from commissioner to AD to commissioner, so your sandwich is a little bit different in the grand scheme of sports. Commissioner, 24-year-old you, to Tom Wistrcill today. If you could look back at 24-year-old you, what would you say to that commissioner? And then if you can flip the script and say, what would you take from 24-year-old you that you want to make sure you still do today?
So, if I was half as smart when I was 24 as I thought I was, that's what I would say. When you're young, you feel like you know a lot. I grew up in sports. My dad was a football coach forever. My mom coached everything else. I know what to do. I know how to do this. And you look back, you're like, God, you didn't really know how to do any of that. And so, yeah, you as you get older, you become smarter. You become more self-aware. You understand your strengths and weaknesses much better. You need to surround yourself with great people that have their strengths as your weaknesses. And I think that comes with age and experience. And so, that what I would tell my 24-year-old self is slow down, listen, ask a lot more questions. Don't assume you need to know the answer. Find out the answer. And so on the flip side, it's a great question, Dan, is I love everything that college athletics stands for, even in today's world where you start to question that. And I love being on campus. I love being around the student athletes. I love the game day atmosphere in any sport. And the minute I lose that kind of anticipation and buzz and anxiety I get of stepping on the field pregame or court pregame of any sporting event, then I know I need to retire or go do something else. As a commissioner, I attend a lot of games where I cheer for the officials because it's a conference game, and I'm not cheering for the teams. I just want our officials to do well. When it's playoff time, then I can go cheer for our teams, right?
Yeah.
But there's nothing like a winning locker room in any sport. And it's hard to describe to people that have never been around that before. But even as a commissioner, when I can step in a winning locker room, basketball, or at the dugout, softball wise, or in a football locker, I mean, just being around the student athletes when they've worked so hard to achieve something and they win the game, that's so special. And I enjoyed it when I was 24. I'm 55 now. I still enjoy it, and I think I'll enjoy it the rest of my life.
Well, that's the thing, right? You find something that you love, you live your passion, do what you love what you do. You don't feel like you work a day in your life. And I mean, I tell people all the time, as many hours as I put in, I love this so deeply that I want to be around it all the time.
Yep.
And I'm so excited. And I had people ask me yesterday, they're like, oh, what are you up to? What's going on? And I'm like, college football's back. And I'm excited. I'm not like, oh man, it's already back. I just did the college football playoff in January. I need a break. I'm like, no, man, I'm itching. So when it comes to college football, you obviously have a conference that is very excited and passionate about the world of college football. And for you, when we look at the FCS and we look at all that is, I feel like the FCS figured it out a long time ago. The FBS was like, hey, we're going to have a championship game. The computer's going to pick it, so you can't be mad at us. And we're going to call it the BCS. Then they brought in the college football playoff. You got 4 schools. It's obviously not enough. I experienced the 12, which was great. And I was there for every single round all the way up to the national championship. And I was on site on location and got to experience history. I still look to the FCS and I say to the college football playoff, why don't you do what they do, what they have done for such a long time? Because the FCS playoffs are so exciting. It seems like there's more representation. There's just more to it. There's more weight to it. You literally have to be the best team to get to the end of it all. And I think the college football playoff going to 12 is showcasing that. I still think maybe they should go to 14 or something like that. But just to speak to FCS football, that it's called Division I-AA, I think that moniker almost creates in people's minds that it's not as good because it's not A, it's AA. So I like calling it the FCS and taking away that AA approach to it. And I'd love to just have you from the inside out speak to what the FCS brings with football, what the FCS playoffs are, and what you think about how the format is in what the FCS has, in my opinion, done right so much longer than what we saw in the FBS up until this point.
Up until I was the commissioner of the Big Sky, I paid, a little attention to FCS playoffs and always admired it from afar, but was never a part of it. In my 7 years here, I have become such a massive fan and a huge proponent, and I talk about it all the time, how great FCS football is. Number one, I think we're the true college athletics now. We're still not doing this, trying to figure out how to pay our players millions of dollars. And so I feel really comfortable in saying we're what college athletics is meant to be. Having 24 teams with AQs for each conference into the playoffs is a wonderful way to do it. FBS is kind of, in my mind, stuck between the past and the future because they're trying to still hold on to this bowl structure that's so ingrained in what they do, and also have a playoff tournament format. And those don't jive together very well.
Yeah.
And so, I don't, there's no easy solution. If there was an easy solution for them, they would have already done it. So I'm encouraged by what they're doing in eventually, I think, getting to 16 teams and having it hopefully be a representative tournament. But they got a lot of challenges doing that, and that's very well publicized. We're very proud of what we do. I think it's outside of March Madness, I think it's the best tournament in college athletics is the FCS playoffs. This is the one thing I told all my FBS colleagues that hadn't been around FCS before, and people like Jim Phillips and others. I told them, I'd said, wait till you see the excitement of hosting home playoff games. You can't describe it until it actually happens. Yeah. And that's such a massive thing in FCS. And our teams that host playoff games, it's such a big deal to those communities, to the students, to the campuses, the restaurants and hotels and bars. And then, oh, by the way, it's probably on an ESPN network as well. So the national TV exposure is so wonderful. Sold out crowds, maybe a little snow falling in Big Sky country. So I'm very blessed to be a part of something that is just so much of the fabric of what we do around FCS football and built in this playoff structure. And it's been this way for years. And so, like I said, it's a wonderful tournament. We fully embrace it. We're the deepest, best FCS conference, right? We'll have 6 teams in the preseason, top 25 again. Last year we got 5 teams in the tournament. Would expect to get 5 again this year probably. So we feel really comfortable with where we're at, excited about the future. The Big Sky is a football conference. Our goal for every one of our teams is to win the conference and win the national championship. Because if you're the number one team in the Big Sky, you got a good chance to play for the national title. And so that's what we're built on here in the Big Sky, and we're very proud of it.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, I think it's incredible to see, 5 teams most recently here get in to this playoff and to see, what that means, what it says about the Big Sky Conference, that whoever your champion is, that's all well and good and that's representative, but beyond your champion, that there is a respect nationally for the Big Sky Conference to have those at-large berths be a part of it. So that leads me to my next question that I think a lot of people ask from afar and just in general when they're looking at this. Are you sick of North and South Dakota? So, I mean, they've had a ton of success, and you get a bunch of teams in, and obviously they're reputable. Your Big Sky Conference is reputable. But is there a joke within the FCS of going, all right, North and South Dakota, we get it. You can play football.
So while I said we're the best and deepest FCS conference, they've won the championships. North Dakota State and South Dakota State have won the championships. Basically, we haven't won one since 2010. And I've got that right on my wall, of champions, right? So we have to beat them to be the best conference. We can get 5 and we can get more teams in. The bottom line is we need to win a championship to really wave the flag as the best. So I love the fact that North Dakota State and South Dakota State continue to wave the flag, that they continue to challenge us. We have great games against them in non-conference football. Week 2 this year, South Dakota State goes to Montana State. That'll be like somewhere between 1 and 4 matchup. They might be 2 and 3 or 1 and 4 or whatever, but that's the type of football that you want. That's Ohio State, Texas in week 1. We have Montana State, South Dakota State in week 2. So I love the fact that they're there and they provide incredible competition and set the bar really high, and they force our teams to have to elevate to that level to win a title, because that's what makes it meaningful, is having to beat the best if you want to hold the trophy. And we need to do it. And we talked about it in our coaches meeting this past weekend at our football kickoff event, and with our ADs as well, and we'll keep talking about it because that's our goal every year.
And here with Tom Wistrcill, the Big Sky Commissioner, and now the Collegiate Commissioners Association, the CCA Vice President. Tom, you said, and you didn't shy away from it, you said we're a football conference. That's what we are, and you're proud of it. As you look at what has happened with your conference, as you've grown over time and who you have, and we look at the membership, right? So your full members, Eastern Washington, Idaho State, Idaho, Montana State, as well as Northern Arizona, Northern Colorado, Portland State, Sacramento State, and Weber State. But I do want to make mention of something that was just announced less than a month ago. And that was on June 25th, 2025, that the Big Sky, and called the nation's preeminent FCS conference, getting bigger. Effective July 1st, 2026, you will add Southern Utah University and Utah Tech University, giving you a presence there in the wonderful state of Utah, and joining as full members competing in the Big Sky starting with the 2026-27 academic year. And so I'd love to just, as we talk about everything the Big Sky is, proudly being a football conference, and then seeing the addition of Southern Utah as well as Utah Tech, just why you wanted to bring in those schools as full members and what it means as we step forward, having this news come so recently and knowing that next year we get to see them both compete inside of the Big Sky.
So Sacramento State made no, bones about the fact that they want to go FBS, and they've done that for well over a year under their new president.
Yep.
And so, they announced that they were going to leave the Big Sky, go to the Big West in all sports, and then try to get an invite to FBS. They've been unsuccessful to date to get that FBS invite, but they let us know they were leaving the league in football and going to go. Right now, for the fall of 26, they would be an FCS independent unless they find a way to an FBS conference. So we were losing one member. So we've had plenty of time to talk about did we want to backfill Sac State leaving? So when they officially notified us, we were able to pretty quickly put things in motion, and the timing was right. We talked about, do we want to just add one of the Utah schools or do we add both? Timing was right to add both for a few reasons. One was, in this day and age, kind of more is less. And,
Yeah.
the numbers of the conference, whether we were going to have, 10 full-time members, 11 full-time members with our 2 affiliates in football still there, really was not a factor. We've had an odd number before. We made that work. When I got here to the league in 2018, we had an odd number. And so then we talked about other things, like we have some sports that are near the AQ line of 6. We have softball and men's golf that we were in jeopardy of losing an AQ if we didn't backfill Sac State. Well, both Southern Utah and Utah Tech have those sports as well. So that was helpful. And then the footprint, the geography made sense. They're only 50 miles apart. St. George, where Utah Tech is one of the fastest growing communities in the entire country. And Southern Utah was with us up until 4 years ago. So we're very familiar with both areas and both schools. So it just made sense at the time to say, let's grab both. Let's make it work. I can't predict in the future what's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to have another school leave. Obviously, UC Davis is going to the Mountain West Conference in all sports, except football. They're staying with us. Someday, UC Davis might get told by the Mountain West, we need you in football.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden they leave, and now we're down a football school. So we can only make the best decision we have at the moment. We have all the information. We can plan and prepare and discuss about the future, but I don't have a crystal ball. So these are 2 really good schools that really want to be a part of the Big Sky, and we were happy to invite them. They were very excited to join, and we'll look forward to having them as full-time members.
Was there any concern from you that the new iteration of the PAC, which is out there on the West Coast, that has taken pretty much every school that ends in state? Was there any thought to you that you have a bunch of those schools that they would maybe call somebody up for the FCS? Somebody said something to me about the PAC, and I said, essentially, if their name ends in state, they might get a phone call. So I know they're out there trying to figure out who they are. And to some people, they're in the autonomy group. Some people, they're not power. Some people, they are. They've been included in certain conversations. Their logo shows up with certain things with the other autonomous group, but there's a confusion there. Was there any thought on your mind that they were just making a run on every state member school that we saw?
Great question, Dan. I'll tell you this. There still is a lot of uncertainty out west here, and it's because of the mediation between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. Until that gets settled, I don't feel comfortable completely about the Big Sky membership over the next 5 years. And the reason I say that is they're fighting over $100 million. Maybe it's about $120, $130 million. And if the Pac-12 gets the majority of that money, then the Mountain West has some membership issues, I think. If the Mountain West gets the majority of that money, then the Pac-12 has to decide on the membership piece. And so my concern would be is if things kind of fall apart in the mediation for one or the other, one of them very well could come call into the Big Sky to fill their membership up. Again, my crystal ball is not very clear in this area, but it's a topic we talk about a lot. And until that mediation gets settled, then like I said, I think that cloud kind of hangs over all the conferences that play football out west.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, being out there, the Mountain West, they have to figure out their identity now because their identity is now going over to the PAC. And so the PAC lost their identity thanks to the Big Ten and to the Big 12. So there's so many things, and there's this trickle effect, right? And I was talking with a school that was D2 when Oklahoma and Texas decided to go from the Big 12 to the SEC. And he told me, make no mistake, we will feel it here. And then they ended up transitioning from D2 to D1. So it's felt all over the country. People think, well, if it happens over here, it's not. If it happens over there, we don't have to worry about it. But like you said, not only is it happening and having a trickle effect, a domino effect, but out west, we hear the pack all the time, right? And we hear the pack even when the pack was the Pac-2 last year with Washington State and Oregon State. But Mountain West, we don't hear of as much, and Big Sky nationally as much, knowing that you're all in that area and you all have that geographical footprint. So, like you said, you don't have a crystal ball, but what are you doing in the here and now of controlling the controllables of your conference to say, with all this uncertainty and chaos that's happening out west, we can control these things? What are some of those pillars of the Big Sky that you're doing with your membership to say, let's stay tight, let's stay unified, let's move forward together?
My job as commissioner is to make sure that our presidents and athletic directors have their eyes wide open to any possibilities that might come their way. And by that, I mean, we talk in meetings about, and I can tell them, I was a G6 AD for 6 years. So I lived that life. And there's some great things about it. So I've walked through with our presidents and ADs, every one of them, the pros and cons of going FBS and the great things that can happen. Here's some of the downsides. Here's the great things about staying FCS. And here's some of the things that are the downsides, right? There is more media money available by going FBS. You would have to, all of a sudden pay the salaries of your coaches and administrators at the FBS level. There's additional scholarship costs. There's additional travel costs. So a lot of that additional media money that sounds pretty good, all of a sudden gets eaten up pretty quickly. I hit on earlier one of the things that I think our schools would really miss, and that's the FCS playoff games. If you go to an FBS conference, you're hoping to go 6-6, get a bowl invite.
Yeah.
It's one game. Maybe you're playing in El Paso, Texas, or Montgomery, Alabama. And would your fans travel to that versus getting to host 1, 2, 3 playoff games in December and play for a national championship? Make no bones about it. If any of our schools go FBS playing for the CFP national championship, that's not going to happen. There's too much of a chasm between the top, the Ohio States and Texas of the world compared to any of our schools. So those are the things we talk about, and that's my job. That's my role as a commissioner, is to go through all of those things, the pros and the cons, so that their eyes are wide open. I can control that discussion. I can control that dialogue. I can't control if one of them has dreams to go FBS like a Sac State and they want to chase that dream. Good for them. That's their choice. We pat them on the back, shake their hand, say good luck. But I can control the discussion and how it happens and make sure that everyone's well equipped to make the best decisions that they can.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, you're coming from a multi-bid conference that's not just looking at the champion of the conference, and you're coming with home playoff games. And so that conversation, like you said, you can control that. Pretty easy conversation. Yeah, you can go FBS and never make it to the college football playoff, never host a playoff game again, and be in a place where you're not going to get multi-bids if you even get a bid. So there's something to be said about that. And I think even some of the autonomy group, these schools are starting to realize that these conferences are getting so big and close to 20 each that it's hard to come out of there alive. And it's hard to really even find your footing within that. So a lot of good points brought up here from Tom Wistrcill here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in this Commissioner Corner featuring the Big Sky. You brought up UC Davis and also Cal Poly. You have them both. So you have your membership that we spoke about, and obviously Sac State making the decision to leave. And then we have the future of the Utah schools. But Cal Poly and UC Davis are your two affiliate member schools, and they're both in football. What is the value of UC Davis and Cal Poly and what they bring to you football-wise?
Both of them are great institutions academically. Both of them have great leadership, presidents and ADs, great people. The biggest benefit to us is from a recruiting perspective. We have a lot of California student athletes in our league all over our conference. And so for us to be able to play football games there in California when they have home games so that those recruits can get a chance to play in their home state at both Davis or Poly, that's really meaningful. our coaches, like, and, I think people, out east or even in the Midwest, number one, they think California is the other side of the world. I think they forget the size and scope and just the population of people that are in California and the incredible amount of quality football programs in that state from a high school level. And so the number of student athletes that they produce is tremendous. By far the largest population of anything out west of our 8 states, both in the number of student athletes they produce and the quality of the student athletes. So it's really important to our league to have that California footprint. And Davis and Polly are great members of the Big Sky.
And for you, Tom, we talk about the changes and how we don't know what's going to happen in today's climate of collegiate athletics. Yet you just found out, and the Big Sky found out, and the nation found out that there will be continuity with all the work that you've done for revenue generation, as well as media exposure, and adding these 2 Utah schools next year in 2026. You have signed a 5-year contract extension, bringing you at least through 2030 with the Big Sky. Just what you can say to the conference, to the athletic directors and presidents that are there, and this extension that you have to continue your leadership, continue your vision for the Big Sky, at least, and I say at least, through 2030.
Well, thank you, Dan. And I'm tremendously honored to have this position as commissioner of the Big Sky to serve these athletic programs and these student athletes and just to represent everything that's, I believe, is true about college athletics. We care about graduation and we care about the student athlete experience. Yeah, we want to win, we want to play for championships, and we'll continue to do that. And like I said, I just feel honored and humbled. I work for a great group of presidents. There's no egos in my president's room. I'm so fortunate to have a board that just cares about the right things and want to do the right thing. In some ways, I joke about it that we don't have enough money to hate each other. We're not talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. But when it comes down to it, the presidents love the student athlete experience too. And they're all invested in their programs. And that helps me because then I can get them to a point as a board to really look at things through the lens of what's best for our student athletes, what's best for our athletic programs. And that's what I love about being the commissioner here. I work with a group of athletic directors very closely that I feel tremendously honored to be a part of. They treat me as one of their own. And like I said earlier in our conversation, me being a former AD helps that I know what they go through on a daily basis. And so we're able to have tough conversations, make tough decisions, and go forward as a group because of the type of people that they are. And I'm very thankful that they have confidence in me. I have a great staff that I work as a part of here at the Big Sky headquarters in Farmington, Utah. And I'm excited to still be a part of this and love the fact that gets me to 2030. That seems like a long ways away, but you and I both know it's not in this crazy world.
Oh, no. And absolutely. We were talking about college football, how, you go to sleep, you wake up, you spin around once, and it's football season again. So
isn't that the truth?
That's how quickly it happens. Before we jump into rapid fire, we can put each other on the hot seat and have some fun with this. I do want to make mention of your history here. The Big Sky's commissioner since December 2018 and national voice on top of that, serving on the NCAA men's basketball committee since 2022 and the Collegiate Football Officiating Board, which is run by the College Football Playoff and includes just 2 FCS commissioners alongside the leaders of each of the 10 FBS conferences. Been there since 2021 and getting appointed to the vice president of the Collegiate Commissioners Association, as we mentioned, the organization for all 32 NCAA Division I commissioners. To be a part of this, Tom, this doesn't happen by accident. And I know you're humble. I know that you've never sat here and, talked about any ego side of things. I'm looking at this and saying to myself, if the College Football Playoff is connected to the Collegiate Football Officiating Board and there's only 2 FCS commissioners with the 10 FBS conferences, that is a massive honor. Serving on the men's basketball committee since 2022, that is another prestigious honor for someone that is within this world of outside the autonomy group. And then we look at the Collegiate Commissioners Association, where you get to look at something that is connected to all 32 NCAA Division I conferences. these are not things that you fall upon by accident. They are humbling, I'm sure, and they also speak to your character, they speak to your leadership, and they speak to the relationships you have and the trust that you've created. So I would love for you to speak on being a national voice and how important that is for you as Big Sky Commissioner, as well as maybe the importance that you feel for all the conferences that are outside of the quote unquote power or don't always get as many bids. The fact that you're one of the few people in the room representing the FCS, as well as representing those outside of the autonomy group and outside of the conferences that we typically nationally hear about the most.
Well, thank you for those words, Dan. I take my role, and I believe almost every commissioner I know is, we feel like we're kind of guardians of this public trust, right? College athletics existed before we got here, and it's going to exist long after we're gone. And so our job is to take what we have and make it better. And that can mean lots of different things. I am such a believer in the student athlete experience. It helped form the person that I am and many people that I know. Without being a student athlete, none of us would have achieved what we've achieved. And I want to make sure and ensure that the future is that way. I've shared the story before of being, it's 1981 or 82. We lived in a small town in Iowa. My dad was a head football coach, and we traveled to Ames, Iowa for a football game. And Iowa State was really bad in football. And I'm going to go on a limb and say Nebraska, saw them play Nebraska, and Nebraska beat them like 63-3 or something like that. Yeah. It doesn't matter what the score was. But being on campus and seeing the excitement of the students, the fans, the alumni, everything that came together, the pageantry around college football. And this was at a team I'm not even sure they won a game that year. It doesn't matter. Maybe they won 2 or 3. I don't know. But that made such an indelible print on me as a person that here I am 43 years later, still living in that moment from 1981 or 82. And I want every person, every young kid to have that experience. And if I can be part of helping ensure that that happens in places like Cheney, Washington, and Flagstaff, Arizona, and Missoula, Montana, Greeley, Colorado, in the Big Sky, then I feel like I'm doing a good job. And I want all the commissioners and all the ADs and everyone associated with college athletics to feel that way. Because, like I said, we're guardians of this public trust. It's why the school names, in many cases, have the state on them. Because that's how important it is. And so that's the way I look at the role that we have and how important what we do. And that's why it pains me that so many of the decisions that are made every single day are all about how much money can we bring into the enterprise. I think we got to filter first through, is this good for all of college athletics? Does this help us 10 years from now? Can we keep March Madness what it is? Can we keep the FCS playoffs what it is? Can the CFP figure it out so that it can be fair and representative of the whole body? And so that's what I believe college athletics is about. And we have to continue to keep the focus on that so that our future is secured.
Yeah, well, they say money is the root of all evil, and there's a reason why you can't take a briefcase to heaven. So I would definitely say that if decisions continue to be made for the money of it all, it'll continue to go down in the wrong direction. I have argued that collegiate athletics has not changed in the sense of the haves are the haves still. The have-nots are still the have-nots. The only thing is it's more expensive. All we've done with the collegiate model is make it incredibly exponentially more expensive, but we haven't made it more equitable for everybody involved.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Dan. I think you're absolutely right. I don't see a great change in the future with the direction we're heading. There's more money involved. There's always going to be more money. The gap between the haves and have-nots is probably going to continue to increase. And like I said, I just think that we need to keep discussing about what's best for the future of college athletics. And it's not a separation. I don't think the presidents will ever be able to get around, hey, we're going to have football and basketball over here, and then the other student athletes are going to be over here. That doesn't exist in an educational model. And so there's a reason why all of these are still tied to institutions of higher education. And we need to keep it that way. It's going to be difficult. This is
Yeah.
not, I mean, I'm not being Pollyannish here. It's going to be really hard, but we still got to talk about that stuff. That's important.
Yeah. No, and it makes perfect sense. We have to protect the Olympic sports who are getting punished for no reason. Tom Wistrcill here with us. Tom, it's time to put each other on the hot seat. You get to ask me the first question. It can be any topic, any question. What do you have for me?
So, Dan, I'm going to go off. I'm not going to talk about college athletics.
Okay, I love it.
I want to know, you got that U.S. flag, and we're just past the 4th of July. What does it mean to you to be an American?
Great question. Never been asked it. And so I will say, to be an American, I am representing my parents, my grandparents, my ancestors. I am representing World War II vets. I am representing Army vets, Navy vets, Air Force vets. So when I look at the United States flag, and I've had conversations with people about this, I think if you burn the national flag, if you step on the national flag, if you spit on the national flag, that's an act of treason to me. I do not agree with hating the country you live in and then using all of its freedoms and acting like you didn't just spit on your country. And yet, I mean, it's kind of like having a wife or a husband, yelling at them, screaming at them, telling them they're terrible, beating them up, and then asking them to pay for dinner and buy you a car. I don't see the rationale in hating a country that you take advantage of. And I don't see, if you don't want to be here, you don't have to be. And I think that, you know, we've become so, my word, we've lost what it means to be American, in my opinion. We have become spoiled brats in a sense, and people have come to a place where we feel like freedom of speech is the freedom to be negligent, to be hateful, to be ignorant, to be unjust. And this is not what my grandparents fought for. It's not what my parents raised me in. This is an incredible country. If you look at Europe, it's a bunch of different countries on the same continent. America is the only place in the entire world where you can take a continent, separate it up into all little pieces, and say this is all one thing. Not a bunch of different countries. This is one united place. And I feel like we have been disbanded and disjointed. I think that there needs to be unification. And I think that the media is incredibly responsible. I always tell people my badge says media, but if I acted like any of them, I don't think God would be very happy with me. I don't think that the media stands for what we're supposed to stand for: truth, justice, kindness, generosity, empathy, and we're not seeking to understand. And so I think that a lot of people in the media want the story. Divisiveness is control, and I stand against that. So what does it mean to be an American? It means that we're supposed to be a beacon of hope. We're supposed to be a beacon of faith, a beacon of light, a beacon of truth. Not sometimes, but all the time. There was a time that the world looked to us and how to do it. And now I think the world looks at us and says, what are they doing? There's a reality that the adversaries of the United States said, you will never have to launch another missile to take over the United States. Just feed them with ideas, disband them, disjoint them, bring them apart, and let them ruin themselves from within. And unfortunately, in today's world, we are seeing an America that is destroying itself from the inside, and there's not a single missile that has to be launched. So I would suggest that Americans remember we're better together than apart. We do all serve the same God, whatever you want to call it. And we're supposed to be a place of freedom and of truth and of honesty and of empathy. And we need to remember the beacon that we are, put our guns down, put our words down, and understand that words do hurt as much as action sometimes. And sticks and stones and words are kind of the same in today's world. and we just have a long way to go to get back to where we came from. But this is absolutely not what we fought for, lost people for, and had blood shed on the ground for. We deserve better as Americans. It starts with us, it ends with us, and we have a duty that we have not fulfilled right now, and we need to get back to it. That's my answer.
Well done. Well done, Dan. A lot of truth there, a lot of things from the heart. So I'm glad you had that answer. So good stuff. All right, your turn.
And in 2028, I would like to announce my candidacy for president. So I'll say this back to you, Tom. Okay, let's go with this. If I am president and I call on you to be my vice president, what are the first three things that you will sit down with me and say we have to do with this country?
Great question. So I think your message that you just had about unity is we got to find a way. I think that to me, the divisiveness of the country is set up, and I don't want this, I know that we're not going to make this political. So the divisiveness seems like the two ends of the spectrum, call it what you want, 10% of each, 15% of each, whatever. To me, that's like 90% of the verbiage and ugliness comes from those extremes. And then I feel like there's, whatever it is, 70% of us in the middle that are like, why are you so angry? And why are you saying this? And, so the majority of us, I think, are really good, strong, faithful Americans. And so how do we bring people together? To me, it's about unity. I've always found if you're face to face with people and exchanging ideas, that usually ends up in a good place. I'm a big fan of that. Militarily, my son was a fighter pilot. He was an F-15 pilot in the Air Force. My brother was there doing that for 20 years as an F-15 pilot. I've been around a bunch of Air Force bases and around the military a lot. Anybody that thinks that the future of America lacks leaders, they need to go spend some time on a military base, and they're going to feel really good about who we stand for, what we do, and how it's done. Because those young men and women are the pride of the country, and so we need to support them in a way. Because without our strength in that area, then we really become then we could really have some problems in the future, and that. And I guess the last one I would have is kind of thinking of it in terms of how do you form this, how do you balance this freedom of speech with the hate? And I think we have to find ways to just get people talking and dealing with real life scenarios, not the news grabs of what can I say. And social media has pulled us in difficult places as a country, and we have to find ways to fight through that, because you see the impact that it has on mental health, both for our youth and our adult population. And so that would take a lot of work. So those are the three things that kind of pop off my head when you ask the question there. I don't envy our political leaders. I think they have difficult jobs, and so trying to keep their constituencies happy and also lead the country in a direction. And so again, I think I'm blessed to be in a place where I feel like I can make an impact around the people around me and the people that I serve. And so, like I said, that'd be my quick answer there, Dan.
Well, and you gave more. It wasn't, we're going to do this, this, and this. It was a bigger picture, overarching, this is how we make positive change in a million different places by having this vision. And that speaks to your character and your leadership and the wisdom that you've gained over time. So I respect that. So I think I might have to call upon you to be in my cabinet. Tom, what's your final question for me?
So where do you see, what's your crystal ball look like for college athletics 10 years from now, 2035, Dan? Give me the one or two biggest differences college athletics looks like in 2035 versus 25. Give me just kind of, what do you think?
Well, there's two things that I predicted years ago, and I'm sad to feel that they're correct. One of them was over 7 years ago. I made a prediction that I said the NCAA will be very different 5 to 10 years from now, if it even exists at all. It'll either look drastically different or it won't exist. That prediction has come true. I don't like that. And the other part is that I said probably 4 years ago now that the SEC would form its own body. It would become its own thing. I think that my adjustment to that was when the Big Ten decided to go and get USC and UCLA and then Oregon and Washington. When they made that decision, I look at where they've taken over FBS. And outside of a couple, I would say 3 or 4 schools, those being Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame, and Miami, they have all of the main logos that you're used to seeing when it comes to the branding in FBS. And I think that the Big Ten did what it did to take the schools it took on the West Coast to have the West Coast, the East Coast, the Southern Middle, the Southeast, the Northeast, and the Midwest all gobbled up within these 2 conferences. And I do believe it's not an if, it's a when, that the SEC and the Big Ten would look to form something together, create their own essence, and they're already considered autonomous, which is self-governing. And I spoke with John Swofford, the commissioner of the ACC, a few years back about this a couple times before he stepped down as commissioner. Him and I had multiple conversations about choosing the word autonomy and why that word was chosen. That we're essentially our own thing that's under your thing until we don't want to be. And I think the SEC and the Big Ten have made them. I think the SEC was already capable of doing it money-wise and what they had branding-wise. I think the Big Ten did what they did, made a pitch to the SEC, in my opinion, and there will be a model that the SEC and the Big Ten may create and institute and move to and state this is going to be our thing outside of the NCAA. Again, I don't want to be right about that, but I've talked to a lot of leaders and they've leaned more on the side of you're not wrong than you're crazy. So I would say those 2 things I see happening probably sooner than 10 years, Tom.
Yeah. I recognize the trend and would tend to agree with you on that. So we'll see what happens.
My final question for you. If you were going to be a member of the Avengers, what power would you want to have? So who would you be? And what villain would you face? What city would you protect?
Wow. Well, I mean, any to me, any superpower that allows you to fly is like the greatest thing ever.
Okay.
I mean, so, if I had to think about from an Avengers standpoint, I guess I'm heading towards Iron Man, but I'm almost, I'm influenced just because Robert Downey Jr. was just so awesome in that role.
Yeah.
I don't think they could ever bring anybody back in that role so I'm going to say Iron Man. I'm drawing a blank on the big villain with the stones.
Thanos.
Thanos. You have to go big and go against Thanos, right?
Yep.
And then, because I made my first visit this year to the sacred ground, I'm going to protect Augusta, Georgia.
Okay. Okay.
Because I went to the Masters this year with my dad for the first time ever. We had an amazing day, and it was like an out-of-body experience walking around Augusta National. So I could have picked any city that I loved, but that just popped into my head because Augusta National is awesome. So I'm Iron Man fighting Thanos on Amen Corner. How about that? How specific is that, Dan? How about that?
I love it. And I will say this, how dare Thanos try to deal with the sacred ground of Augusta? So,
Exactly.
yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Tom
So there you go.
Wistrcill, Big Sky Commissioner, and now your Collegiate Commissioners Association, CCA Vice President, will take over as president in a couple of years. Tom, as always, it is my pleasure to have you on the show. It always feels like old friends talking, and I thank you for your time as always.
Great to be with you as always, Dan. Continued God's blessings to you, and hope you have a great rest of the summer.
And the same to you. God bless to you and your family. I'd like to thank you for watching and listening to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. Once the shows go live, they jump into the archives, and you can find the ever-growing archive of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Make sure that you follow and subscribe for free on these many outlets. I'd like to thank everyone in North Carolina listening and watching, as well as the visitors to North Carolina. Make sure when you're in the great state of North Carolina, whether living there or visiting, to head to Brooklyn Pickle on 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina, less than 10 minutes from Pinehurst Golf Course that the PGA knows all too well. Remember, at Brooklyn Pickle, a half is a whole sandwich, and a whole is like eating two sandwiches. Definitely get what you pay for at the Brooklyn Pickle. Head there today in Southern Pines, North Carolina. And many thanks to our team of partners in Central and Upstate New York. Make sure to support Great Lakes Honda City, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, K9 Campground Dog Boarding, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Brian's Landing, Mon Paz, the snack capital of the world, K9 Camp Dog Daycare, Pizza Man, Mother's Cupboard, GG Cards and Breaks, and Avicoli's. And remember that Wake Up Call is the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins, Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse, and your Binghamton University Bearcats. You will find Lemoyne Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and Binghamton Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. To find all of these wonderful schools' growing archives, you can go to youtube.com/WakeUpCallDT, click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our Lemoyne playlist, our BSC Syracuse playlist, and our Binghamton playlist. You can also find all of these schools by going to WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage and underneath the Exclusive Partners tab. For more information on the Dolphins, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com. On the Bobcats, go to Syracuse.bscbobcats.com. And for the Bearcats, go to BinghamtonBearcats.com. Once again, thank you for watching and listening to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Find us 24/7 on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, X at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. For now and for always, God bless, no stress, do your best. From the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, this is Wake Up Call. And remember, you matter. Every day, all the time. Be good to yourself and be good to others. God bless you.